Welcome in. Welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon. This is the Crowded Booth on a Tuesday night. Typically, we do this show on Monday, but we had the holiday weekend and we also had a college football game last night, which we will talk a little bit about. But week one is over. We had a great weekend in Atlanta. Shout out to everyone who came and was a part of it. And we're getting ready to talk more college football. Week two on the horizon, the ACC, our takeaways, and of course, just a bloodbath of best bets in week one. That and more in tonight's episode of the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in. Welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon, alongside Ralph Leary and alongside Will Menace. We welcome you in to tonight's show. It's a Tuesday night, which means we typically do some other things, and we might be starting to open the phone lines at some point on Tuesday evenings when things settle down a little bit as we get into this. But we're talking typically a Monday night show as we're recapping week one. Both of you fellas are muted, so
settle down. It's week two. We're just getting started.
That is true. That is true. A lot of stuff going on. Before we get too really far into this show, as a lot of people know, and it was really kind of funny, guys. I had some people who cover the LSU beat alongside me watch our show on Saturday. They enjoyed it. They thought it was a fun time, and really big shout out to everyone involved with that. Obviously, Lizard Tech for setting up the tailgate. Will, you were mentioning like we don't know. Oh, look, supporting it right there. Uh, we don't know how really well that would have turned out if Lizard Tech didn't come through. And that was that was awesome. That was really great. And shout out to everyone who made it possible. Matt down there for donating the TV, Maxwell for picking up the chicken nuggets, which were just destroyed by the plethora of people that were around, and really everyone. Section 103 was there doing some good work, and fellas, I mean, hey, you got to cover your first college football game, which in one of the oldest stadiums in the country, which there need to be some renovations, not just in that corner of the end zone. There needs to be improved, but
needs to be some new hires for the security down there too.
Yeah, I about lost it. I about lost it on the security. But yes, we did take Crowded Booth on the road and live, and that was a ton of fun. And stay tuned because we might be doing some more of that throughout the fall. But shout out, fantastic time. We really enjoyed it. But fellas, kind of the big news. Well, not just the big news, is college football's back. Week one was kind of, I don't know. Like, I feel like I woke up this morning and I was like, good grief. Like, there's not college football tonight. We've been watching it every night since Thursday. We get to watch the Braves play the Rockies instead, which I'm not watching. But, it is what it is. College football will be back on our slate, I believe. I don't know if there's any Thursday night games. Are there? Are there some Thursday night games? I know there's some Friday night games. There's some Friday night games. Anyways, week two's almost here. We'll be previewing those games later in the week. No Thursday night games. Okay.
Yeah, 3 on Friday.
So just 3 on Friday. And then obviously on Saturday, we have the Saturday slate of games. But, the big news, week one has come and gone. We saw a lot of different things. It was a busy day. And rather than just breaking down every single game, because look, it's Tuesday. By this point, you've watched games, you know what's going on. We're going to go a little roundtable discussion here with maybe our biggest takeaways from the week. What is something that we saw that we were like, whoa, we really like, or that just kind of popped off the paper to us? So, Ralph, in certain fashion that's going to excite a lot of the fan base of this show, you're going to kick things off here with your first, or your only takeaway, I should say. You'll go first here. What was your biggest takeaway from the weekend? I know you and I got to watch a little bit of this game. Will was there in person, but kind of walk me through. I'm sure you saw some of the highlights after the fact, just kind of your takeaway and what was it?
Well, I spent the last 2 days watching some of the games I didn't get to watch. So I got to watch. I already watched most of this game right here, Georgia versus Clemson, the Notre Dame Texas A&M game, and the Miami Florida game. Just watched like most of the highlights and stuff like that, and the Troy game, which I don't want to talk about. But what we saw in Georgia is that the first half was a very even game. Obviously, I think Georgia was still dominating the first half, but they kept it close. It was 6-6 at halftime, and no, I'm sorry, it was 6-0 at halftime. My 6-0 at halftime, and you saw Georgia decide to make some big adjustments at halftime, which propelled them to win 34-3. in absolutely blowout fashion over Clemson. You know, I was really high on Cade Klubnik this year. I have been. I think Georgia just does a very good job year in, year out, no matter who they're playing, of extorting their weaknesses. And they take advantage of your mistakes. They always have, they always do. The run game with Phil Maffa, we thought was going to be really good, wasn't there. 19 carries or 16 carries, 59 yards for a team that ran for 23 carries for 46 yards. That's not what you want as a Clemson offense to establish a pretty good run game to open up the pass. Not happening. Carson Beck didn't do a lot. He was 23 of 33, 280, and 2 touchdowns. You don't ask much more for your quarterback than that. The running game for Georgia, we didn't get to see Trevor Etienne.
Mm-hmm.
There are some other running backs that we were excited to see. I was excited to see Branson Robinson finally play. 7 carries, 12 yards. I was really hoping for a big breakout game for him, but the big breakout in that game was Nate Frazier. Nate Frazier, a true freshman, 11 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Huge game by Georgia. They look as dominant as they always have been. Their big transfer name last year was London Humphreys, in my opinion. The kid showed off his speed in the second half and how talented he is, and the transfer from Vanderbilt, obviously. And this team just looks as solid as they were last year and the years before. I think they're very well rounded again. Their schedule, the schedule just tough enough. They do have Ole Miss on the road. They go to Texas. They go to Bama. In a few weeks. This team is so well rounded, so well coached, so good overall that I don't think there's a team out there that's really, pre-game better than them. Now,
the way they prepare,
if you're saying on the field they played a better game, that's different. But if I go beforehand, I think Georgia's got a hand on every single team they play this year.
Yeah, that's I like that. I mean, the way that Georgia prepares, and this is something I've been having a lot of conversation with LSU fans. Like, it's just night and day. The way they prepare, not a lot of boneheaded mistakes. And if you see a bad mistake, then you don't really see it happen again, and it doesn't ruin or result in a snowball effect or an avalanche effect of a lot of different things going wrong. So I do agree with you there.
I want to get the one comment. It's Gavin's. KJ Bolden, Malachi Starks. I said it last week. Malachi Starks, this is year 3. Dude's been since he's a freshman year. Absolutely. And if you saw the interception he had, it's almost the exact same interception he had against Oregon his freshman year. Yeah, these two guys.
Okay. I post about that. What's the point? What's the point of that?
I think it's a great play. Yeah, it's a great
play. But why are we freaking out that it looks like the one he made as a freshman? Who cares?
Yeah.
Go
is my question. I mean, it's still a great play.
It's true, Bodley. It's true. You got to beat Bama. That has been, years past. You've always thought of like Smoke Monday. No, Smoke Monday would have had targeting. Absolutely will. Years past, it's always been Saban versus assistants, and and Kirby was one of the first ones to beat them. We don't have that matchup anymore. I don't know if DeBoer's going to start that trend or start a trend where he just keeps rolling at Alabama over Georgia every year. I believe Kirby's got the upper hand this year. I think they're a better team. I still think Alabama's very well, coached, and they're really talented, but they lost a lot in that portal. They looked good against West Kentucky, but that's not saying much. TJ Finley has lost to Alabama at 3 different schools.
That's impressive.
That's tough. That's tough right there. So yeah, look, Georgia looked great on Saturday. They dominated the whole entire game. Will, you were there in person. You saw how, you texted us early in the game. Clemson wanted the ball first.
Clemson won the toss and wanted the ball. I was like, "Are you, Dabo? What did you smoke before the game?"
Whatever it was, it must have been some of that Atlanta stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, the score was 6-0 at halftime, and
it didn't feel close.
No, and Austin was at the game with me, and he was acting a little nervous. I was like, "What are you nervous about?" I mean, you've dominated this first half. I don't think Clemson took a snap in Georgia territory until well into the third quarter. I mean, it was dominant. It didn't feel like 6-0. And then when Georgia came out to start the second half and just marched down the field, with basically no resistance, I've said, yeah, this game's pretty much over.
Yeah, I texted Ralph, or I was talking with Ralph. We were in the car. We had gotten some lunch, getting ready to set up for the tailgate, and we said, "Oh, it's 6-0 at half." Ralph and I were at a very good sandwich establishment. They're not a sponsor, so we're not going to talk about them. But very good sandwich. Only the best fresh ingredients at that sandwich establishment. Love it, Maxwell. But I texted Ralph and said, "Oh, well, it's 6-0, but." I told Ralph, I said, Georgia's got the ball in the Clemson too. And it was like, I mean, just marched down the field coming out of the half. Will, you were there. This is something where, and I saw a tweet about this. I thought this was interesting. It says that if Carson Beck was on another team, he probably would be able to showcase a little bit more. But, and I was like, okay, it's interesting in terms of if he was like, he's super talented, but he doesn't have to do so much to win football games at Georgia. In that case, I kind of understand that, but he can sling the ball around. He has shown that.
I mean, yes and no, because Georgia doesn't win games by just running the ball. I mean, he has to make throws. He does everything.
They're so balanced.
I would say this:
his football IQ is. He's such a good quarterback. He's got to make all the checks, all the reads, pre-snap stuff, and there's a lot of people that don't think he's very good because he plays for Georgia, which I think is just preposterous. I mean, the dude he should win the Heisman Trophy and he should be the number 1 pick in the draft in April. I mean, he is head and shoulders better than any other quarterback in the country.
Well, I don't know if you saw, there were some comments in the Discord on Saturday saying that Georgia doesn't trust Carson Beck to throw downfield. I told Bryce that might be the dumbest thing I've heard. If they don't trust him to throw the ball, dude, they trust him with that offense completely. He wouldn't be playing quarterback if they didn't trust him at all.
They don't have to throw it down the field.
Yeah,
they can,
but he certainly can. He did it against Clemson. He made a couple down.
They'll do it against Tennessee Tech and Kentucky and Bama, Auburn, everyone in that schedule.
They probably won't do it against Tennessee Tech. I don't.
They'll just run Cash Jones until
that first play to
his over-under hits
on a wheel route is going to be just.
See, well, you know what's the craziest? Here's more slander that I just get told. Look, you see the hat I have on. I can acknowledge.
Will's a realist. Will and I are realists when it comes to football. Georgia's really good. Carson Beck's very good. This offense is terrifying. This defense is terrifying.
Yeah, they look to be really good. That's a good takeaway, Ralph. UJ probably dominant. Dev says, since when does Magic City Kitchen sell sandwiches? That's a good comment there, Dev. That might be comment of the night. So that's Ralph's takeaway. UJ's dominant again. Now, obviously, we'll see. They've taken on Tennessee Tech, who nearly knocked off Derek Mason in Middle Tennessee over in Murfreesboro. So that was a nuts game. There's a lot of different storylines.
Little side note. I was talking to Will about
little tidbit.
You know how we're talking about the Arkansas State Central Arkansas game?
And it got flipped. I saw the ruling today.
You saw that today?
Yeah.
That's.
Did you see that, Will?
Yeah, we were just
where the Sun Belt Conference came out.
I saw that.
That's nuts. Yeah, that's Ralph's takeaway. All right, we're going to move on to mine. Let's roll to mine where we stay in the SEC, but we're talking about one of Ralph's all three in the SEC. One of Ralph's favorite topics of conversation: arson. Here we go. So Gainesville is in flames. So let's talk a little bit about this.
Hold on. Here you go. Bailey, here you go. Well, this is the time for it.
People got mad about Dan Mullen retweeting the tweet that he retweeted. Okay. Repost, whatever you would call it on X. The man's got a point. Now things soured quickly. We do need to realize that. Things started to sour quickly in Gainesville when they dropped off. But I think they made a desperation move. They tried to capitalize on a situation that they thought would be advantageous, which was Billy Napier. But fellas, it's not even the game on Saturday. It's the fact that DJ Pickett, current LSU commit, was on a Florida official visit, 5-star, along with a really, really loaded OV weekend or visit weekend in general down there in Gainesville. Miami players are walking off saying, come to the U, flashing up the U. And Florida recruiting staffers are desperately trying to get the players, Miami players, off the field as they're talking. Pictures are being taken. There are pictures with guys on Florida visits with Miami players. And that's just
Saw
hilarious.
pictures
to me.
of Florida
crazy.
visitors throwing up the U.
Yes, exactly. Yes, throwing up the U. So you have that. The second piece of this is shout out Gus Malzahn and UCF. I don't know if you fellas have seen this. The UCF Collective has now made T-shirts that you can buy, and I think I want to buy one for Will. Ralph, I see you nodding back there, so I think you've seen this. Correct me if I'm wrong in what the actual shirt says, but this is something along the lines of, correct me if I'm wrong here. It's rural. What is it? It's Central Florida rural people. Here we go. I got this. Rural Central Florida. Billy Napier went into his press conference and said that they shouldn't care about what anyone says, especially the people in rural Central Florida in their mom's basement. Now, this is what I want to say. What Billy Napier should have said, and I want to give credit where credit's due, guys, because I talk a lot about this program. We were there on Sunday night. Brent Key at Georgia Tech does a fantastic job of this. Kirby Smart at Georgia does a great job of this. Certain coaches at really good programs do a good job of this. They say, hey, we're keeping what is meant to be internal, and the focus is internal. What happens in this building happens in this building. That's what Billy Napier should have said. What he did say sounds like he should be on this podcast because it's something that we've said before. So, that's the crazy thing. I think Gainesville could be in flames. I think Florida is... I said this, and you guys remember this, and I'm bringing it back to y'all. You guys remember when I said this? Worst case scenario could be 2-10. Fellas, they looked horrible on Saturday. I don't think they make a bowl game. They may not win a game on the back half of that schedule. You can beat Samford. Are you going to be able to beat UCF in a couple of weeks? Mississippi State, who knows? I don't know.
I'll say this. If they lose to Samford, Billy Napier is not even seeing Gainesville in week 3. He'll be gone. If they lose to Samford, he's gone. Because that performance on Saturday against Miami was pitiful.
Atrocious.
And then you lose, you come back home, you play a Samford team that just lost to West Georgia, and you get beat at home. I'll tell you right now, it will be a riot if he's not fired after losing to Samford. If they do, obviously.
I shot a text over to one of the 24/7 writers that covers Florida, and Buddy's just been going through it. He says he loathes getting on the message boards every single morning and having to reply to stuff. Any article that he writes is respond, who cares, fire Napier. Like, that's literally, there's just stuff constantly.
Well, Bryce,
it's bad. It's bad down there.
It sounds like LSU's boards for Saturday or Sunday night.
We'll talk about that. We can talk about that.
Well, I've got, I don't know why we're shouting out Carmelo English. I've got an opinion on Napier's comments about we don't need to worry about what people are saying. I don't have a problem with him addressing that. I mean, if that's an issue in the program, it's probably something he's preached from day one. And if he's having to address it publicly, he's trying to get a point across to his team. And now it's even more embarrassing now that you're having to make that public. You talk about Brent Key and Kirby Smart keeping things internal. Those two, they walk into a room and they command attention and respect. Napier, I don't know if it's a physical thing. I don't know if it's a track record thing or what, but I don't get that vibe from Napier. So he's got to do things a little bit differently. But I don't really have a problem with him saying it publicly that, like, hey, we need to wake up and focus on ourselves and not what other people think about us.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think that
Kevin, this is so good.
Jeez, that's good stuff. Good. No, I think I will say this. I understand the message. I think the words that were used, it's easy to make a meme and laugh about.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
That's more of where I'm going with that specific comment, because you're right. Like, if that's a problem, it needs to be addressed, and he needs to say those things. We need to stop worrying about what outside people say. But when you say things like that, that's what prompts UCF's collective to make a T-shirt like that and make a joke out of it. And I will say this too, like, there have been coaches, and a lot of the people watching the show know about a certain coach that I'm talking about. There have been coaches that speak in slogans, that speak in T-shirt slogans and don't back it up. And I think that's what could make Napier look silly, because you said it after the fact.
It's money down.
So that's good. That's my takeaway, though. Any more thoughts on Florida?
Speaking of, shout out to them. They're the only team to hand the Big Ten a loss on week 1.
That was a brutal watch. That was a brutal watch. North Carolina, I don't know what they're going to do without Max Johnson. But anyways, Ralph, any thoughts on Florida?
At least attempt to win against Samford because you're probably not going to win the next 3 weeks after that. That's
Mississippi
I mean,
State could come in. They play at Mississippi State, or is Mississippi State?
So
coming to
it's Samford versus A&M at home, at Mississippi
it's
State,
at-
and then at home against UCF at Tennessee.
Guys, what if they go 1-11?
He won't see the state of Florida. They'll be shot.
Is Florida's bye week the week before Jacksonville this year? It typically is.
They have one after Mississippi State, and then they'll have one after Kentucky. So before Georgia, yes.
I bet you. I got money on he doesn't coach that Georgia game.
I don't think he'll coach Tennessee game.
Cam Newton will coach that game.
Well, it would be the most Gus thing ever to
lose that game.
lose as a favorite in the swamp.
I got you.
That would be very Gus.
Grady says Napier can't handle a water bottle let on a college football.
That was tough. That was tough. That was
You just feel for the guy.
I'll tell you
feel
who
for the
can
guy, 'cause it
handle
was
who can
brutal.
handle a water bottle was Brian Kelly. He can handle a desk if he wanted to. Just
Yeah, we got to talk to him today. That was a lot of fun.
Post game interviews this weekend were mayhem.
They were. Hey, before we get to Will's, Ralph, put up that breaking news. Breaking news here on the podcast. Bryce got excused from jury duty. Don't have to drive all the way back to Columbus, Georgia for jury duty. Got big letter in the mail today. So that's huge. That's big. Round of applause. Will, your big takeaway, which we know where this is going. Ralph, put the full screen on them. We're going to talk about this.
Dev,
Jeez.
two comments of the night for Dev.
Dev's on a heater.
That is
All right.
so good.
Will, you ready for it?
All
Here
right,
we go.
Here we go.
Ah.
Auburn is all the way back. We up. Get it in there, Gavin. We up. Auburn with an absolute trouncing of Alabama A&M, hanging 73, second most points in the history of Jordan-Hare Stadium. I think that's look, Alabama A&M. You probably should take it with a grain of salt, but because Alabama A&M is one of even Ralph with a we up, even though he's supposed to be a Troy fan. Alabama A&M is one of the teams at the bottom of the SWAC, bottom of the FCS, but hanging 73, that's impressive no matter who you're playing. Auburn, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this happened. You know, obviously Gus Malzahn, he gets up by 20 points. He's going to run the ball the rest of the game, right? We're wasn't going to keep throwing it. But listen to these numbers. Auburn's quarterbacks, 3 of them got to play. 18 of 28, 451 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, completed 64% of their passes. Peyton Thorne, 13 of 21, 322, 4 touchdowns. I mean, Auburn's back. Auburn's back. Seeing the comments, Bailey, it just looks different. The real ones know. Absolutely. You've got this crop of freshman receivers. Malcolm Simmons coming out party his first game. Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, Bryce Koon got a couple catches. Look, it was a big stage night game for these guys' first game. Every route they ran was correct. Hugh Freeze said, you know, they could have gone out there, run the wrong routes. They could have dropped balls. Peyton Thorne could have missed them more. You know, Cam Coleman hit that poor corner, took him to the ground on that double move. Peyton Thorne could have airmailed him. I mean, you still have to execute no matter who you're playing, no matter how wide open you are. I mean, it's different. I mean, when you think about Auburn, you think of running the ball. Auburn's Jarquez Hunter only ran the ball 4 times. And that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the passing game. I wanted to see these young receivers, these new receivers, be able to get involved and see what this passing game looks like. This is the Hugh Freeze offense that we were this is the Hugh Freeze offense that we were promised, that we didn't get to see last year. And you know, if you're an Auburn fan, you got to be excited. Leading receiver last year was Rivaldo Fairweather. He only had 1 catch against Alabama A&M. So the emphasis is on the wide receivers. And tell you what, Auburn's going to be at least fun to watch this year.
Ralph says this. He says Will was giddy in the press box. Will, we're sitting in the outdoor press box. Yeah, it's a night game, but the humidity is wild. It's brutal in
I think
Atlanta.
I sweat from the time I was walking to the tailgate at like what time was that? Like 4 o'clock until midnight. Well, up past midnight, I sweat for 8 hours. It was awful.
The hope in Will's eyes are back. Dev says. Ken says, I feel like Will just took a victory lap for taking a sixth grader to prom.
Okay,
No,
well,
did he?
you know what? If somebody took a sixth grader to prom, you better call the police.
Yes, there you go. This is what I'll say about Auburn. It was kind of crazy because we're just sitting there, and I felt like every 15 seconds, Will's saying, "Oh, they scored!" Like there was no sustained drives. Like there was no type of sustained drive. It
Yeah,
was literally
okay,
just 2 or 3 plays. Like the
What
drive
was
chart's
that?
ridiculous.
I got the time of possession right here. Alabama A&M had the ball for 36 minutes and 34 seconds. Auburn had it for 13 minutes and 26 seconds.
But Will, I want to ask you this real. Like
listen to the big plays for Auburn. Passing plays, which gains of 15 or more yards. Auburn had 9 of those. They had 5 big rushing plays, 10 yards more, had 5 of those. I mean, Auburn has not had 9 big passing plays. I don't know if ever in my lifetime. The only other game that I can think of where Auburn threw the ball like this was that Music City Bowl against Purdue when Jarrett Stidham just slaughtered Purdue. I mean, you don't see it often as an Auburn fan.
Let me tell you the big dunks I just made on my 5-year-old.
Listen, okay, all these comments about Georgia Tech in 2005, Auburn was not back in 2005. Auburn was back down in 2005.
Fresh off what should have been natty.
Yes.
This is what I want to ask you, and I mean this in all seriousness, because look, we saw Ole Miss do this to Furman. We saw I think Furman's a much better team, by the way, than I think Alabama A&M is probably one of the worst FCS teams in the country. I don't want to diminish because, Will, you do need to see things. Like one of the things I've said to people about what LSU needs to do to Nicholls State this week, dominate them. Like this is what good teams are supposed to do. But now you go into a week against Cal, and you and I are going to talk more about this later in the week, and we'll have more content on it. That has to carry over. Now, not in a 73-0 game.
Hey,
but you got to look
wait
explosive.
a minute now. Wait, it might happen. It could happen.
I
mean, we'll get more into it, and I'll do more research into Cal. But looking at the box score from that Cal UC Davis game, I mean, I haven't seen Dr. Bob in here though, but that Auburn minus 12.5 was what that line opened at. That's like best bet territory.
Jade Knott's kind of banged up too.
Yes,
so,
yes. I mean, no Jade Knott and Cal's doesn't have much. But I mean, like you said, these are the things that we needed to see out of Auburn. We need to see Auburn aired out, and I love the mentality. Every defensive player, I think Dorian Mousey was the one that his quotes got out most, acknowledged that they still have a lot to clean up. I mean, DJ Durkin has ingrained into them. Words are hard. Nameless, faceless opponent. Because all they could talk about was how much they had to clean up on defense, and they only gave up 3 points.
Yeah.
So I think the mentality's there. That's what I'm saying. Auburn's all the way back. This is something we haven't seen from Auburn in all aspects, not just putting up 73 points, but the execution, the mentality, the intensity. It's all there. It hasn't been there in 5-6 years.
Auburn Cal classic SEC ACC matchup.
Oh, Jesus.
Bailey also says this. He says Kai and Lee will be a first rounder. I don't know if he's going to be a first rounder. The kid's super talented. And he was a guy that I thought really was a bright spot for that team in 2023. No, look, I mean, I'm excited to see what Auburn does because I think we saw in the SEC, like, it's not what we thought it was, as is college football. And so there's some juggling of spots and positions to where, hey, maybe Auburn can crash a playoff. We talked about that. Maybe they can. Yeah, let's talk about our takeaways. All right, let's move on to the big theme of tonight's show.
Dude, I will snap a Cruton finger. Get that away from me.
Jeez. Let's talk about the big theme of tonight's show. What's wrong with the ACC? And is there something wrong with the ACC? Because I had someone pose this question today to me, said, "Hey, what's up with the ACC? I know you like to keep an eye on what happens over there. And I don't like to keep an eye. I just have to keep an eye on what goes over there." But I will say this, and I want to pose this both to you, and I want you to give your own individual answers. Is something wrong with the ACC, or are we just seeing teams that maybe don't have the brand value start to see their stock rise, and it's just a changing of the guard, where we're seeing a more competitive group at that mid-tier of the ACC? Yeah, I don't know what that was. So Will, you go first. Is something wrong, or is this just an example of, hey, other teams are just getting better while the teams that have been on top are just kind of, falling behind a little bit or falling off to the side?
I don't know if something's necessarily wrong. I think everybody's expectations of the perceived top two, Clemson and Florida State, is not really anywhere near what the expectation was. And it's still really too early to say that about Clemson. I mean, Clemson could honestly just roll out 11 straight wins. I mean, and it wouldn't be too much of a surprise. I mean, they didn't look great on offense, and I don't know if y'all saw that clip of their offensive line that was just so combobulated. You had
that is probably the worst clip I have ever seen.
Both guards went.
Hold on.
The same direction.
Florida versus Georgia Southern. What do you mean? That's the best one of all time.
No,
yeah.
Ralph, this had two guys blocking each other plus other three guys getting pancake. It was awful.
Yeah, it was rough, but I still saw enough to think, okay, Clemson's not out of this. Like this is stuff that they can clean up, and they went up against the best defense in the country. They can clean it up. And I think another problem is everybody was kind of looking for that dark horse. NC State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, even they struggled against Ohio. So I think expectations were too high on the ACC and too high, especially on the perceived top two in the conference. There's still a ton of football to play. It was just week one. And there was a lot of weird games this weekend. A lot of teams had to deal with weird weather. Bryce, don't put yourself on full screen because you've screwed up your camera. So for me, it's perception. The perception of the ACC coming into the season was not what we expected. Oops.
Yes. I'm sorry.
I'm clicking stuff and messing with stuff too.
It's okay. You need an egg roll. Oh God. Okay. So
I had the video.
I think that you're. Well, Ralph, go ahead and play that video. Go ahead and play that video. If you can find it. I can't. People FaceTime me during these shows.
Oh, jeez.
This is horrible. What's happening? Okay, pause. Okay, can you go back and pause? Can we watch this frame by frame
right
here?
There. Look, both guards pull into each other.
The right guard does not need to pull here. That's the thing. He's not supposed to pull.
Really?
And he pulls.
The center is the only one who does his job. And still gets beat.
Does his job. And
the right tackle gets swim moved into the ground.
Well, I mean, he did his job. He got beat, though. That's all it is. I mean, the bad thing is what's Nine doing? Because all he's just doing is making
Nine's about to play patty cake with Smile London here on the backside. I don't know what he's doing.
What's Nine the whole time? He's supposed to block that? How is he supposed to catch him? He's 4 yards away from him. He's not going to catch. If he wanted to, he could have got right through that gap and hit Phil Moffitt in the backfield before he took the ball.
Well, that's just that's one of the wild things. Okay, that's interesting stuff. Well, you mentioned this. I think there was just this expectation. Of, I mean, someone just had an epileptic seizure trying to watch that. So there was an expectation that the ACC could be wide open. And
Dev's had the three best comments of the night.
This is what running the ball feels like on Heisman. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I don't know, fellas. I mean, I do believe that this group of teams that we were talking about, NC State, Virginia Tech losing to Vanderbilt. I mean, I think Vanderbilt's better than they were last year. Diego Pave is a problem. Like he's a good quarterback. He's a game.
I just
He's
got
a
done
baller.
glazing. I just got done glazing Auburn, but Vandy's going to beat Auburn again. Or Diego's going to beat Auburn again. It's going to happen.
Yeah. But NC State looked rough in their season, but they won. They escaped, so that's what's important. I mean, like, we could very well see a scenario where you have neither Clemson nor Florida State in the ACC. Like, I don't think Florida State can win the ACC. I'm going to tell you right now, like, and I want to say this. 3 weeks ago, with the entire nation, a lot of us said that we thought Florida State would be good. I even said I thought they could be 9-3. I don't think they could be 9-3. It would take something miraculous, I think, to figure out what's going on. Guys, let's go back to all three of us because I don't do this on myself here. I don't know if you guys how much you watched that game last night. Florida State has no offensive plan. Like, there's no identity. And I'm going to say this, and I tweeted this out. Either Jonathan Smith is one of the greatest coaches of all time, or both Dabo Swinney and Mike Norvell have no clue how to utilize DJU. Like, zero idea. I do not understand what the problem is. Their offensive line's not great. Their defensive line is not the best in the ACC, and I will say we never said that they were. That was Pete Thamel of ESPN who said that they were. They are just not good. Defensively, they're not very, very good. They've got talent, but they just don't play well. And offensively, there's just not a game plan. Like, it is just such. Now, DJ doesn't make great throws. Like that throw he missed in the corner of the end zone, that is brutal. It's a brutal missed throw. But you saw when he got into a rhythm, he can zip the ball. Now, he throws the ball 500 miles an hour.
He couldn't really get into a rhythm because it seemed like whenever he did make a good throw, it went right through the receiver's hands. Like, there was a lot.
Well, someone said he throws the ball really hard, but I have no clue. Like, he has no touch.
Well, you can't run the ball either. Your run games have been horrendous. I mean,
it's terrible.
16 carries for 21 yards. You're barely averaging a yard per carry, barely. And honestly, that's not a good thing. That's terrible. You have too many good athletes on this team. I mean, Roylo Williams had 3 carries in that game. 3 carries. I mean, that dude was getting 15, 20 touches at Alabama last year. You know, pushing 100 yards per game.
We scoff at that, but they got down 10-0, 14-0 quickly.
Yeah.
So that you got to throw yourself back into the game there. But I mean, it was still the first quarter.
Yeah. And they couldn't stop, Castellanos and Robichaux. I mean, they really could not stop this.
And Ward.
Yeah, and Trayshawn Ward.
FSU transfer. I mean, he gashed them all night long.
It was brutal.
They made that offense look like the Baltimore Ravens. That's exactly what I think the Ravens will look like with Derrick Henry this year, with a combination of Lamar Jackson and Robichaux. I mean, looking like Derrick Henry. Like, guys, they were so well balanced, and
Columbus, Georgia native Kai Robichaux.
Yes, hand up. We made fun of the Bill O'Brien hire. He had that offense humming last night.
They were ready to go.
They were ready to go. They smelled blood in the water after what happened, obviously, in week 0. But, guys, I mean, Florida State's not good. Like, they're not a good football team right now. Now, I'm not going to sit here and use a blanket statement because, guys, we know that teams can evolve and change over the course of a 15-week season that we have now in this sport. But right now, they're not good. Their back's against the wall. They have to figure out a way to correct things. Kind of going back to Clemson, we talked about this a little bit. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's a talent thing. Georgia, okay, you're going to be able to do some things if you're Clemson because Ken said it earlier, like defensively, you're really, really good. You're really good. You're good defensively, but you can't expect a defense to hold on for as long as they tried to hold on against Georgia. I mean, you held that offense for Georgia that's arguably probably going to be a top 10, top 15, offense to 6 points in the first half. And that's nuts to think about.
Hey, but remember, that's Mike Bobo's fault.
The Mike Bobo slander is one of the most
I heard from the Georgia people sitting around me. was just complaining about how bad Mike Bobo is, and I say it every year: death, taxes, and it's Mike Bobo's fault. Georgia's offense isn't good. It's
Georgia fans
insanity.
don't know what to complain about anymore, so they just complain about their embarrassment of riches. One
Well,
to
They
get
were
this
doing
real
it
quick.
10 years ago. Georgia fans
Yeah.
did it 10 years ago.
DJ, you called all the crap last night, but I didn't think he was the main problem. He was off target, made some bad plays, but he wasn't the problem. You hit the nail on the head. Nobody thought, and we even said this, that DJ would have to be a guy that carries your team. He's not that. He never has been that guy. He's been a complimentary piece, and throughout, especially last season. But you sit now where nobody's helping him out, and you see what happens when he has to be thrust in that role. That's not who he is. Iden Smith, I think they're broken, entirely mentally shattered. They've got a high proportion of the highest caliber athletes in the country, but that doesn't make them a team. They're playing awful as a unit. Yeah, it's
Totally
so
agree.
It starts with
so
coaching.
crazy.
It's just the simplest thing. It starts with coaching.
Yeah.
And they need to sit back, and I think they got Duquesne next. I don't care if you beat them 10-0, if you beat them 90-0. You have got to figure something out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you can't put something, you can't put a drive together and then score. I mean, how you put in 3 plays in the first quarter? 3 plays. Your defense was gassed after the first quarter because they were just blowing by you, taking time off the clock, letting them. And the same thing I said week after week about, Georgia Tech. If you want to win games, you got to keep your defense off the field and control the time of possession. Boston College did that all night last night.
FSU plays Memphis next week.
Oh, good grief.
Who do they play this week? Duquesne?
They play Memphis.
That was
This
Duquesne.
Saturday they play Memphis.
They play Memphis.
Oh, God.
I'm pretty sure.
No, Troy plays Memphis this week.
No, they play Memphis. No, wait. What?
Troy plays
I
Memphis
might be getting
this
my
Saturday,
weeks mixed up.
right?
No. No, like they're on a bye week this week. They're on a bye week.
Florida State's on a bye week. Their next game
Troy
is against
plays Memphis this weekend. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Memphis.
I think Florida State and Clemson have similar problems, and it starts at the top with the head coach for a couple different reasons. Like Mike Norvell decided in January that they were going to pitch a fit and play the victim and say, well, we should have been in the playoff. We're good enough. We deserve it. And they probably did because they won all their games, but he let that define them then. And it's why they got beat by 60 by Georgia. And he's let it define them all summer and all fall camp. And that's why they're 0-2, losing to 2 teams that they on paper should have beat by a couple of touchdowns. And then Clemson, you have the wrong mentality, but in a different way. Like Ken says it right here, Dabo is when you don't use the portal. Norvell is when you rely too much on the portal. Dabo's elitist mentality about his team and his take on the portal, I don't understand it. I think it was ACC Media Days. He was asked about the portal, and he said, well, a lot of guys in the portal aren't good enough to play for us. Well, there's no way that's true. I mean, everybody watches you play. There's no way that's true. So I think it's a huge mentality issue with Mike Norvell and Dabo Swinney, and nothing for these programs until their attitude change. I guess I skipped around again. I see y'all making faces.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change until the mentality of those 2 changes.
Yeah,
well, you're completely right though. And the statement that Dabo said, "There's no one in this portal is good to play for us." That's a sorry statement. That's just you saying that I'm a better recruiter than anybody in the country, and I get the guys I want to get, and I can build them up to be better than anyone who's in the portal. That's terrible. I mean, if Cam Ward's sitting in the portal, Cam Ward is probably the best quarterback on a dual threat wise right now in college football. That everyone knew was going to be available. And if you're sitting there and you're questionable at your quarterback, I know Cam Ward was thinking about going to Florida State at one point. Do we think that if Cam Ward went to Florida State, it'd be a different team, like a completely different team?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I think from what we've seen through 2 weeks is they're just not very good.
I've got a take
all
here.
around. Okay.
I've got a take on this. Dev says Dabo's far too good of a coach to be as stubborn as he is. He's just not adapting. Is Dabo really a good coach? Or did Dabo have a couple of elite recruiting classes and just hit on them? I mean,
okay.
and a great.
He was
quarterback, Trevor
elevated. He
Lawrence.
was the wide receivers coach for Clemson. Was the interim head coach to finish out when they fired Tommy Bowden, and then was named the full-time head coach. And then it took him what 4 seasons before they really got rolling. I kind of sit on the side of the fence that Dabo's not that great of a coach.
I would say he's a good coach because to me, coaching involves recruiting, and Clemson has had good recruiting classes. Now, we could talk about is Dabo
does.
the best at managing his staff, because the biggest thing from which is also encompassing of a coach. So I think there's things that he's really good at being a coach. Then there's things where he hasn't maybe adapted because like this isn't a Garrett Riley offense. And that's one thing I continue to see on social media from Clemson fans. Garrett Riley's stock is going down because he's at Clemson right now. And that to me is one of those things. Now, Gavin says this, Dabo has always been a motivator with elite coordinators. That can work. It can work, but you have to be able to keep
part of the job.
those guys in.
Yeah,
it is part of the job to recruit and build the staff around you. But
I'll say this:
something's lacking. Something's lacking.
A motivator who had great coordinators and did really well for a few years. Ed Orgeron.
It just ran out.
Yeah, it ran out because all your
because you hired Bo Pelini back as your DC.
Yeah, but like I said though, Ed Orgeron when he was
the Dabo memes have been so good this weekend. Oh my god!
Yeah, well, Albert, I agree. And it's the same thing we've been saying since Trevor Lawrence left. He has to have an elite quarterback for his team to be good, and it sucks to say that for Dabo because I don't see an elite quarterback coming his way anytime soon. They're going to go to Georgia. They're going to go to Bama. They're going to go to Ohio State. Teams that have won more recently. Teams that are willing to adapt to the changes and everything else.
Well, I'll say this too. I want to get to this and then real quick. Dr. Bob says the loss of Venables is a bigger issue than most admit. Yeah, he was an elite defensive coordinator. I also wanted to add this: the rise of Georgia over the past 6 years Clemson has felt the biggest effect of that. Because Clemson still recruits well in the state of Georgia, but ever since Kirby Smart has gotten to Athens, that has put essentially you start to kind of look at some of the recruiting that they've done against each other in certain terms of head-to-head. It kind of feels like Georgia gets their pick, and Clemson really just gets the player, and if Georgia signs off if they want him or not. Like that's kind of how this feels in terms of recruiting. So I don't know. That's where I sit with that. Now, I did want to get to this comment right here because our good friend Albert, who, fellas, I don't know if you remember, Albert shouted down to us from the stands on Saturday. Thanks for tuning in. He says, looks like we're doing any tackling drills during camp. That's Florida State. Yeah, I did agree with that. But here's where I kind of sit with this. And we talk about those two teams because they're massive in terms of the brand value. But let's talk about the rest of the ACC for a second. Look, we're going to say it. Right now, to me, if I had to put 4 teams in that I think could reach Charlotte, I would say Miami. I think they're good. I think they're going to be good. Now, are they going to be good enough to make a playoff? We'll see. Miami looks good right now. I like what I have seen from Georgia Tech in terms of being able to grind out victories and win in tough situations and win different ways. This week's going to be a nice test for them going up. I will say this. I'm going to say this on Thursday night show or whatever. The Kyle McCord, Haynes King battle is going to be one of the more underrated quarterback battles that we see all season, I think. So you have Georgia Tech, Louisville. Okay, we got to see what they look like against a real test. I still think NC State. I think NC State eased in maybe a little too. I'm not counting them off yet. Outside of that, guys, SMU. Okay, they struggled in week 1. We have to see what it looks like. I don't know. Who am I missing? Miami, Georgia Tech, NC State, Louisville. Those 4 for me feel like if I had
Boston
to put money on
College.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now, Boston College could just be one of those teams that just beats you. You're playing them at home, and it's the red bandana game. They beat you like they did last year, almost against Florida State. This team's is a scary team. You don't want to play Boston College because they're not trying to win.
I would like to play Boston College.
Personally,
I would like to play Boston College.
Just you by yourself?
I think I could outcoach Bill O'Brien.
I don't think you could, but okay.
Will's going to get clipped for saying Dabo Sweeney is not a good coach, and what he just said right there. Boston College, Haynes King is a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett. Georgia Tech
Yep.
fans.
That was I heard that. from
Okay, we're
several
not derailing
people
the
on
show.
social
We're not
media.
derailing the show. This show's been great. 200 people watching live. We're not derailing it.
I'm gonna
But-
throw. I mean, obviously, got to see what it's Malik Hornsby. He's back at UNC, right? He's gonna be the quarterback now that Max Johnson's hurt.
Who?
What?
Malik Hornsby.
No, that's
North Carolina?
Grant Harrell.
The
Who?
Harrell kid.
Yeah, is it Graham Harrell? Is it what
Malik
it is?
Hornsby. No, Graham Harrell played for Texas Tech, Ralph, in 2000 and
I thought who I thought Malik
Connor
Hornsby
Harrell,
went back
sorry.
to UNC.
Connor Harrell.
No,
Connor
Malik
Harrell stepped
Hornsby
in.
is at Arkansas State playing wide receiver.
Oh well, okay.
Anyways, okay.
I'm
so let's
still, I'm still
gonna
gonna put UNC in there. They could make it to Charlotte.
I think that's the whole point. Anybody could. And I see a lot of
I think
comments.
they've
like
got
so-and-so-
I think they're vastly improved on defense, and they're going to lean on that defense and get to Charlotte. You laugh.
They
but
are. I
look
mean,
real-
they're
look-
gonna. What they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to literally ride Marion Hampton to
Didn't
wins and
And Caleb
play the
Hood
defense.
is also very good.
Dev asks, is Jeff Brom now the best ACC coach?
I'm not saying anything.
I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. Like 2 games can't determine that or not. You can
But
have a
I-
bad year and
this-
still be a
this is the
great
best comment
coach.
right here. First game.
Goldfellow.
Good comment. First game. Absolutely. All right, Maxwell. Not shouldn't that comment.
I'll tell you who's not the best ACC coach. It's that crybaby at Pitt.
Well, we're never going to go to a Pitt game. Not that we would want to.
We're gonna talk about our
Yeah.
best bets this weekend.
If we could finish this topic, we could. Yes, and the side comments. Yes, we could. ACC. I mean, I do agree with y'all on this. I don't think it's necessarily something wrong with it. I think we're just seeing the mid-level teams play a little bit better, and your perceived big brands are down in here in 2024. Once again, just 1 game, 2 games for Florida State. We need more data points, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. But I'll say this, and I tweeted this out. If Miami doesn't make it to Charlotte, I don't know when you will. Like on paper, you've got probably one of the best teams in the country, just in terms of recruiting rankings and on paper. And especially with how down the ACC is in terms of Clemson, and I know they don't have a conference loss, but it'll be interesting. Also, you better be glad Notre Dame's not in the ACC because I think they're a very physical football team that's going to find some ways to win some big games this year. Okay, let's
Shout
Let's
out
go.
Brian Kelly for losing the SEC 2 games this weekend.
There you go. Yes. Midnight Jig says, "What head coach isn't made better by good coordinators?" Very
Kirby
true.
Smart.
I would say that's also what makes a good head coach is
Josh
is giving the reins over and learning how to dictate. That's
Kirby
something I don't
Smart.
think Deb. He already said that.
Dave Doran.
Sorry.
Dave Horn.
Doran.
I thought you said Dave Horn. I was like Arkansas's baseball coach.
Dave Doran. Doran, as some in the chat would pronounce it.
All right, let's move on to best bets. I can't take this anymore. Midnight, I do want to answer this. What head coach isn't made better by good coordinators? It's part of being a good head coach, being able to delegate and make the right hires. That's a big part of it. We're going best bets. Just a
Yeah.
absolutely, guys. Honestly, I mean, if we're just being real with ourselves here, this was a bloodbath. This
was awful.
this was awful, and we all took an L, and we can't be afraid to say it. We all were
We all
bad.
suck. We all suck.
Well, I don't
Don't
know
follow
if we.
Don't follow our bets.
All right, let's take a look at what we had here.
This
I'm
is
gonna zoom
Jonesy's
in for
favorite
us.
segment. He's not even here.
Let's go to here. Yeah, I don't know where Jonesy is, but that's honestly not our biggest problem. Okay, so you have UNLV Houston. I took the over at 54. That didn't even sniff it. Willie Fritz has got a long way to go over in Houston. Ralph took West Virginia +8 because he just drinks the Kool-Aid of anything that's tainted with Troy, Alabama. And that's why he took that. And so he got just murdered.
Pummeled.
Um,
And waited a
and
whole
then-
hour and a half at halftime to then play it again and get their crap kicked in again.
Will arguably was the closest here, I believe.
Yeah, he's felt like
I got beef with Kent State.
Kent State plus 24 at Pitt. So we're now let's get updated standings. I'm 1-1. Ralph's 1-1. Will is 0-2. But hey, Will started off slow last year, and
Let me just
Gotta come back.
tell you how dirty Kent State did me.
yeah, that's what we want to hear the last 6 minutes of the pod. Let's roll.
Talk
game was-
Tell us.
Kent State.
They were down 28-24 in the third quarter, and then
Shame.
proceeded to let Pitt score 27 unanswered. That will be the only time Pitt does it all year.
Eli Holstein, former Alabama quarterback.
Louisiana native.
3 for 330. I
Maxwell
mean, if
Stanley
you're
Steamer.
giving up 55 to Pitt, you need to
I don't
you need to
trust that.
reevaluate a lot of things about your
that link.
football program.
I don't trust this link. I'm gonna need
No.
someone to go click on that and tell me what that is before we do
Yeah,
it.
please, someone find out.
Let's
That's gonna say.
let's end it here. Albert Scott says the year of the unknown. It really might be that. And that's a good comment to kind of end it on. We'll see what happens. College football is going to be a lot of fun, and a lot of stuff happened, and we have some big games here on tap in week 2 as well. So, hey, big shout out once again. Let's thank everyone who was a part of that tailgate on Saturday. Had a fantastic time. Thank you so much for coming by. If you did, really, really appreciate it. It was so much fun to meet a lot of people, interact, have a good time. And, shout out to the hospitality for the Georgia Tech fans there as well. And stay tuned because we're working on some stuff, but we might have a stop each month of the college football season. We might be going somewhere, which would be a lot of fun going forward. Bet Online, that's where we find all our lines, and that's where you can obviously play alongside us here. Is use code BELIEVE for a nice little discount there. Believe Podcast Network we're a part of, so make sure you give them a follow too. And we're the Crowded Booth. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms and stay tuned and subscribe to that YouTube channel, fellas. We have had our best growth ever in the past 30 days, and we want to keep riding that momentum all the way throughout college football season. So the best way you to help us, you know what? You could donate. You could do a lot of different things. Very least you can do is hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with your friends and family. He's Will Mannis. My name is Bryce Koon. That's Ralph Leary. We will be live again this week, taking a look at week 2 and all the games that are on tap for this weekend. We'll catch you next time here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.